Welcome back. You are still watching Morning Live. We get into our final sport bulletin for today. Now, the stage is, of course, set as Bafana Bafana will be taking on Zimbabwe in their final Group B match later on today. It kicks off at 6 p.m. Now, a draw against Zimbabwe could be enough for South Africa to qualify for the round of 16. Bafana Bafana coach Hugo Broos, however, says he expects his boys to rise to the occasion and beat Zimbabwe. Bafana Bafana are currently second in the group following their defeat to Egypt on Friday. For more on this, we're joined virtually by Far Post editor Mthokozisi Dube, live all the way from Morocco. Mtho, I know it's quite early in the morning there. You're an hour behind us. It's nice and crispy. So thank you so much for your time this morning. I just want to first get your thoughts. What is the mood like from your point of view, having seen the team just ahead of this crucial final group clash against Zimbabwe?
Look, the mood is quite good, very positive. We watched the training session yesterday and the players look focused, and the coach, who spoke to him yesterday, and he says they are not even aiming for a draw, which would be enough to qualify for the knockouts, but they are going straight for a win.
And I mean, that's exactly what we want. Give me your thoughts in terms of how you're seeing this encounter pan out, because, of course, South Africa and Zimbabwe are no strangers. We are neighbors, but nothing neighborly when we get onto the field of play. Coming into this final clash, how do you see the approach coming through from both sides of the field?
Very interesting, because Zimbabwe have a new coach. The last time we played them, they had a different coach, so there's been a change. So the approach could be different. They know for the first time Zimbabwe are going into this game with something to play for. I think in the previous 5 times, the last game of the group stages was a game of no consequence. But this time around, they could actually make it to the knockouts for the first time if they win the game. So they probably would want to, go all out and try and get goals, which is a nice scenario for Bafana Bafana, because if they do come at them, Bafana Bafana have very dangerous wingers. Also, Napolis has been good. I think in the first game, I think he was very good, scored a goal. Zepang Moremi also has been doing very well. So they may want to make use of those wingers to get behind the Zimbabwe national team. So it's going to be, I expect to see an open game today.
And we speak about seeing an open game. We saw how Bafana Bafana came out against Egypt and coach Hugo Broos after the fact saying perhaps in that midfield he did make a mistake in terms of how that pairing looked like, with having a Mokoena, also having a Mbata in there. Talk to me about how we're expecting from your point of view, having heard what the coach said after that Egypt game, what you think that midfield is likely to look like today.
Yes. So I think that midfield was there was no balance, because I felt, those are 3 players that are a bit too defensive. So the team lacked a bit of creativity, especially in the second half. So I expect to see a change where you would have Pepelos Tole playing with Tebogo Mokoena, and then the third player being Sipho Mbule, who then gives you that creativity, because they've got to create chances and get those goals. So I expect to see a different midfield trio, which would include Sipho Mbule this time around.
And let's speak on the side of the opposition. When you look at Zimbabwe coming into this game, I think one of the biggest talking points coming to the tournament was Marshall Monetsi not being part of that final squad for AFCON, having played such a key role for them in qualification. Also, the other Musona not making the team as well. When you look at Zimbabwe and how they've come out in terms of just that attacking, what do you make of it, and what does our defense then need to be wary of?
Yeah, so no Marshall Monetsi, I think, who I feel is a leader in that team. Very important, probably the most experienced player that Zimbabwe has. And also going into this game, they without teenage Hadebe, who's also injured. So I expect to see a couple of changes there. But they do have someone like Knowledge Musona, whom we all know very well. He scored their goal in the last game, so So I think Bafana Bafana defenders would have to be wary of knowledge. I think his movement's very, very interesting. But the other player that I thought was very key for them is Bill Antonio, who plays his football in Belgium, plays off the left wing. He actually provided the assist against Angola, a very dangerous player that Kuliso Muta will have to take good care of on the right. And then they could also have Daniel Msendami, who plays for Marumo Gallants. I think we saw him in the first game, in that game against Egypt, very tricky winger. So Bafana would have to be on the lookout for those three players.
And it's interesting because those three players were the three players that we eventually saw getting subbed off against Angola quite early for a lot of people, particularly with the knowledge Musona. Let's then look to, when we look at potentially who South Africa could then face in the round of 16 if we manage to get there, what's that looking like?
Most likely, I mean, Egypt are already going to finish top of the group, whether they lose today or whatever the result is. So finishing second place could see Bafana Bafana play either Cameroon or Ivory Coast. So one of those two should be on the menu next for Bafana Bafana, which would mean moving to another city.
All right, it's going to be very interesting. As we wrap up the Bafana Bafana and Zimbabwe conversation, let me get your thoughts in terms of how do you think it's going to play out after 90 minutes? Is it a victory for South Africa? Are we seeing a draw, or are we seeing an upset?
I see a narrow win for Bafana Bafana. I mean, this game rarely produces too many goals. But I see, if I were to predict, I'd predict a 1-0 win for Bafana Bafana.
I absolutely love your prediction, Mtho. In terms of the rest of the tournament, what do you make of it? We heard the sentiments of Coach Hugo Broos also just speaking about, yes, the football is interesting, but the actual vibe is just not giving Africa Cup of Nations vibe. You in Morocco, what do you think of the vibe, and what has that been like for you and the teams that have stood out for you?
The last AFCON in Ivory Coast, wherever you went, people were just celebrating and just enjoying the AFCON. And in Morocco, I think they've got exceptional facilities. I think the hospitality has been good, especially for the teams. But on the streets, it's a bit different. Maybe also because of the weather. I think the time, it's winter in Morocco. It's raining sometimes. So, I mean, in such conditions, people stay away from the stadium, and you don't get that vibe that this is an AFCON. Hopefully, this changes as the tournament, draws towards the
knockout stage,
because you want to see people enjoying African football.
Mtho, thank you so much for your time this morning. It's always such a pleasure getting your insights. Ladies and gentlemen, that is Mthokozisi Dube. He is the Far Post editor joining us live all the way from Morocco, where he is, of course, covering the Africa Cup of Nations. Remind you once again that South Africa will be taking on with Zimbabwe in the final encounter in Group B. You can catch it live on SABC2. The build-up starts at 5 p.m. with kickoff at 6 p.m. That's where we'll leave it in terms of your sport news right here on Morning Live for today. Have yourselves a blessed day further. We take you through to an ad break, and then Lisa will be back with you after this.